at the forefront of politics.
Our enemy is Trump. He is the enemy. We got to unite. If we're not a united party, we lose to Trump.
On the front lines of activism.
There's certain fights, if we don't engage, they win. This is a fundamental question of who we are.
And delivering your daily dose of comedy.
Donald Trump, when he had his physical, they had his blood pressure, and mine is higher than his. Oh. And the irony is mine is higher because of him.
From the blue wave.
We flipped enough seats to take control of the House. We control the House.
To 2020 and beyond. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters. Friday, August 16th. That's right. We work every day. Friday in the summer. We're here. Full show. All 3 hours. It's more than 3 hours of work. But still, I'm your MBFF. I hope to be at least. I'm on Twitter all weekend. I'll be there at Dean Obeidallah. And of course, sincerely, drop me an email over the weekend, dean@deanofradio.com. In fact, I'm scheduled to be on Joy Reid Show tomorrow and Sunday, both days this time. Kind of rare. And I hope you will check it out. I'll be there talking about some of the issues we're going to talk about tonight. And we've talked about all week. First, it's Friday. We need some humor. And this is Colbert last night. There is a real petition gaining steam here in New York City. And I think most of you are going to love it. I'm not kidding. Hear it out. And this is a real thing that's going on. Here's clip number 1.
There is a petition currently circulating here in New York City to rename the stretch of Fifth Avenue between 56th and 57th Street President Barack Obama Avenue. There you go.
Yeah, I'm into that.
I agree.
Come on.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'm into that.
To make the honor complete, whenever a car tries to turn left, it will be blocked by Mitch McConnell. Most importantly, best of all, that tiny stretch of Fifth Avenue is home to Trump Tower. That's nice. That's nice. If the petition has already been signed by almost 300,000 people, and if it's successful, the new address for Trump Tower will be 725 President Barack Obama Avenue.
That is completely true, folks. That is a real petition in New York. Now, they're not going to rename Fifth Avenue. That's unlikely. But what they do in New York is have honorary names of certain sections of streets. It happens all the time. They had a street naming a few years ago. My friends were involved, George Carlin Way or something. And so you could see part of Fifth Avenue renamed Barack H. Obama Way, right in front of Trump. But he'll still have a Fifth Avenue address. And here's another quick joke about what the origin was of this. And this is true as well. Here's clip number 2.
Now, while the campaign is very popular, the woman who started it said, I honestly just started it as a joke. Careful, some things that start as a joke end up as president. Now,
sadly true. All right, so my friends, I want to update the story. We covered yesterday a lot the Donald Trump, Benjamin Netanyahu blocking of Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar. So there's some updates today. And what happened, you may have seen the news, that this morning, the Netanyahu administration granted Rashida Tlaib permission to go just to the West Bank to visit her grandmother. But what happened before that, Rashida Tlaib had sent a letter to the department, the Interior Department, essentially, in Israel, saying this could be my last opportunity to see her. I will respect any restrictions and will not promote boycotts against Israel during my visit. So the Netanyahu administration said yes to that. Then she thought about it some more and realized, as a member of Congress, why is she putting conditions on herself? Now, I don't know why she offered that in the letter. I never would have offered it, but I think the sincerity of wanting to see her grandmother so much made her do that. So she goes, no, you know what? I don't want to go if there's going to be these conditions. And she tweeted, here, silencing me and treating me like a criminal is not what she wants from me, speaking of her grandmother. It would kill a piece of me. I've decided that visiting my grandmother under these oppressive conditions stands against everything I believe in, fighting against racism, oppression, and injustice. And interestingly, Steny Hoyer, who is an older generation, he's the second ranking guy in the House, who's very, very pro-Israel, he put out a statement. It's very interesting about this. He said, the Israeli government required Tlaib to sign a letter in some way limiting her actions while in Israel and or the West Bank. To my knowledge, no member of Congress has ever been asked to agree to preconditions in order to visit Israel. And that was interesting to see Steny even stand with her a little bit there. But, you know, I want to take this opportunity for a few minutes And we have a lot of time to take calls, right till 7:30 tonight. But I want to take this opportunity to talk about the human story behind this of Rashida Tlaib and her family and how excited they were. And this is based on the reporting in Washington Post and various publications. How excited they were at the prospect that she was coming back to visit them as a member of Congress. Because this is the first summer that she's in Congress. And she, in the past, had gone back to visit her family sporadically over years. And her family lives in a village about 15 miles outside of Jerusalem in the West Bank. My family lives about 15 miles outside of Bethlehem in the West Bank. And they're not far from each other, these communities, these villages. And they are villages. They're little sleepy villages. My family's from a town called Battir, Battir, a very small town, right on the Green Line it's called, which is the dividing line between Israel and the West Bank. And her uncle, Uncle Bassam, who was interviewed on TV, before the ban was imposed, was just looking forward to, he said, "We are proud of Rashida as the first Arab Muslim Palestinian woman to reach Congress. As her family and the families of the village, we are planning on holding a ceremony in her honor." But he added, "We are ready to receive her, but we are worried that the Israeli occupation will prevent her from entering." And this is before the ban. And Rashida's grandmother, who is around 90, because no one knows exact age, it's not like born in a hospital. It's a lot of times being like my grandmother, who passed away years ago. You're born with midwives, and it's not like the same reporting requirements. But in any event, she's around 90. And she said she was looking forward to Rashida coming. They would pick figs directly off the trees in her grandfather's yard. She said, quote, "I am so proud of her. I prepared the arrangements for her high school graduation celebration, then her undergraduate, and now today we will celebrate her election to Congress." And she added, "I saw her yesterday on TV. She looked cuter than ever." Adding, "I'm proud of her." Who wouldn't be proud of your granddaughter like that? I love her and I am so proud of her. But then she goes on, life on the ground. She talked about it to the Washington Post, that even in this little village, it's challenging for them. And as the Washington Post noted, that her little village is cut, not in half, but cut right directly through her family's land as a highway. And that highway was built for the settlers to go to the settlements in the West Bank. And she said, "I used to walk across, but now," said, "it's hard for me to reach my land on the other side. I used to cross by walking, but once a woman was hit by a car." And then after the decision was made by Trump, to be blunt. I mean, Trump told Netanyahu, and maybe they were out together and had a discussion, but this was a Trump thing, in that her uncle Bassam responded then, "We aren't surprised by this decision. We were expecting that the occupation would forbid her entry to Palestine at any moment." And the head of the village council, a man named Ashraf Samara, said that this is all very strange for the media reporting this. He's getting a sense, but he said, not for me as a Palestinian, because I know the reality of occupation. And that's really, think about it. How many times have you seen stories about Palestinians just living their life? You see when they're involved in violence, the media will cover that. Hamas is a terrorist group. If you see them involved in anything, you will see media coverage of that. But you won't see their real life. In fact, we had Congressman Mark Pocan on last year talking about him and two other members of Congress try to go to Gaza. And the Israeli government said, no, you can't go see Gaza, because they did not want them to see what's going on in what has been portrayed by countless people as an open-air prison. And so today, Yusuf Munir, who's in the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights, was on MSNBC and talked a little bit about the human story here in a desperate effort. And I have to applaud MSNBC for actually having Palestinian voices on. They had Rula Jibril on, Ayman Mohadeen, who's an anchor. He's half Palestinian, half Egyptian, talking about it. They had Yusuf on, tomorrow I'm on, and Ayman's guest hosting for Joy, and talked about being Palestinian in human terms and what goes on there. And that's all I want. I just want people to hear the truth. This is not about politics. I'm not trying to convince people politically one way or the other on anything here. I just don't think as Americans you hear what's going on. You don't have that opportunity. It's never shown to you. It's not a conspiracy. It's not the media doesn't allow it. To them, they don't think it gets ratings, so it doesn't get talked about much. So here's Yusuf Munir today talking a little bit. Here's clip number 3.
What this really gives us is a window into the kind of daily, humiliating, and torturous decisions that Palestinians are forced to make every day, that are imposed on them by Israeli policies, pitting one piece of their humanity against another. And there are so many examples. Do I drop my pants at a military checkpoint if it means being able to make it to a hospital appointment that I need to get to? Do I accept a permit to go visit my dying parent if it means that I can't go with my brother whose permit was denied? Do I post what I really think about the situation on the ground on social media if it means never being able to see my family again? Do I allow my 5-year-old child to be taken away by Israeli soldiers if it means pushing back might leave him an orphan? These are the kinds of inhumane decisions that Palestinians are forced to wrestle with. And I think what's so important about this is that for the first time, Americans are getting to see a little bit of that reality through the prism of a congresswoman. And this is why I think the Israelis, to be honest with you, are so concerned about Rashida Tlaib, because she's forced, Congresswoman Tlaib has forced people to think about Palestinians as human beings for the first time in a space like Congress, where that very idea was taboo.
And you know, you hear Yusuf saying the same thing. I do. I say it all the time. I just want people to see Palestinians as human beings. I just want the people to see the humanity of them. And if you read about it, there's certain times written publications do a good job covering it, but not cable news. And I must be blunt with you here. And I write for CNN, so they give me a voice there, and they pay me to write every week. I'm writing for years, so on the digital platform, it's much more diverse than what you see on air there. Well, MS has been having countless, or at least not countless, at least you can count them, but there's a fair number of Palestinian American voices coming on in the last few days to talk about this. I didn't see any on CNN. And obviously, I'm not watching every day all the time, but I'm watching at the same times here in the studio or flipping back and forth at home. And our voice just doesn't matter to certain bookers. They don't even think about it. And I honestly don't think it's discrimination. I can't discount that, but I don't think it's that sinister. They'll have a story like this and they'll just have normal political pundits come on and talk about how this has hurt Trump politically, as opposed to, hey, this is an opportunity to have Palestinian Americans on to talk about their family, just to share what it's like. And also to make the point there, as Yusuf connected, that what happened to Rashida in Ihlan and the frustration and the pain of what seemed on some level an arbitrary prohibition of your freedom of movement and freedom of travel is daily life for Palestinian Americans. And what's been amazing is so many Jewish organizations came out against Trump on this. AIPAC did, which is very, very, it's conservative group, hawkish a little bit on their support of Israel. J Street, of course, is much more a liberal group. They're of course, this is the second time AIPAC has come out against Netanyahu in the last few months. And I really get the sense, and I could be wrong here, that there are more and more Jewish Americans, even those who support Israel, getting the sense that Benjamin Netanyahu, who the reason they came after AIPAC criticized him a few months ago, I talked about it last night, was he teamed up with a group called Jewish Power in his coalition, which is a right-wing group based on a terrorist group called the Kahani terrorist group, which talks about violence against Palestinians, talks about expulsion of Palestinians, horribly anti-gay. So it's a terrible group. But Netanyahu, just to win, thought he needed a few votes from that subsect and teamed up with them. And AIPAC publicly said that's just horrible. And all the mainstream Jewish groups said that was horrible. And same thing here. And maybe more and more Jewish Americans are getting the sense, even those who support Israel very, very much, that our values as Americans don't correspond with Benjamin Netanyahu's values. The same way our values as Americans don't correspond with Donald Trump's values. They're not the same. There's no overlap. And perhaps that's what's coming out. But today, Peter Beinart, I think he's been on the show once or twice in the past, maybe. I like Peter, great guy. He's Jewish, very proudly Jewish, progressive guy. He wrote an article for The Forward, which is a progressive Jewish publication that I've written several articles for just in the last few months. And he wrote about, he applauded the Jewish groups who were criticizing Trump, but he made a human point because he's been to the West Bank. He's been seen Palestinians. And he said here, and I'll just read a little passage, what he wrote. He said, and his goal here is expressing the humanity of Palestinians. He said, quote, most officials of mainstream American Jewish organizations have never been to places Tlaib and Omar plan to go. They've never talked to Palestinians whose homes are about to be bulldozed because they lack the building permits that as non-citizens under military rule they can never get. They've never heard Palestinian parents explain the terror they feel when Israeli soldiers come in the middle of the night to take their children to be interrogated, often for days, in the absence of a lawyer. He continues, they've never stood in a Palestinian village that receives a few hours of water per day and seen swimming pools in the settlements nearby. They've never visited Tlaib's village, her family's village, where according to a 2015 report, local children waded through sewage channels to reach a high school enclosed by the separation barrier on the three sides. So you get an idea of what this is about. And Yeah, and I don't even want to talk about the BDS movement. I don't want this political. I want this just to be a human conversation about the daily life of Palestinians living in the West Bank, who their freedom to travel and move is completely beyond their own control. There are checkpoints within the West Bank that I mentioned yesterday that my cousins and family, when they have to go to work, if it's open most days, they get to work. If the Israeli military closes it, they can't get to work. They have to go to the doctor, checkpoints closed, they can't get to work. They can't go to the doctor, can't visit family members. There's family separation, not like we see with Trump in cages, but family separation that if you're in a different part of the West Bank, if the checkpoints are closed, you can't see each other. And I've gone through the checkpoints in the West Bank, and it's unnerving. First of all, I'm a New Yorker. I hate to wait, so that's one thing. I mean, there's in New York, I go to a drugstore like Duane Reade or Walgreens, and there's 6 people. I'm like, I'm out of here. I don't need this garbage. There, they wait for an hour. You wait, and you go through a checkpoint, and you have people pointing these military weapons at me. That's what they point them at everyone. It's not just me, of course. Everyone. I'm like, that's an American weapon. You're using it was my taxpayer dollars that are funding that weapon. You're pointing at me right now, and the surrealness of it. But you can't make any comments. And my cousins are so calm about the checkpoints. They go, you don't say a thing. Do not be snarky. Don't be sarcastic. Could you say something to the soldier there, the Israeli soldier, and they'll just keep you there all day. And your whole day is ruined. So just smile, say yes, sir, no, sir, and move on. And by the way, and again, I didn't want to make this political, but, Congressman Tlaib, if you're interested on Twitter, some people on the right, both here in the U.S. and in Israel, were saying that her plans didn't even talk about Israel. It was all about Palestine. She actually put her plans online. That was just a lie. I mean, the fact that people on the right are lying on either Israel or America should not surprise anyone. That's something that unites conservatives overall, lying and lack of truth. She talked about they were going to meet with members of the Knesset, both Arab and Jewish members of the Knesset, which is the Israeli Congress, that they were going to meet, of course, with the U.S. ambassador. They were going to get security briefings. So they were going to meet with Israeli officials. That's an absolute lie spewed by the Netanyahu administration, which is like Trump. And Netanyahu has used the term fake news, just like he got it from Trump. He used it to criticize things against him. Do I personally think any of this is going to move the narrative that much on Palestinians and people seeing their humanity? Probably not. Do I hope it reaches some people? Yes, that's my hope. Little by little. Just like my goal in dispelling stereotypes about Muslim Americans is that it's an iceberg of misconception. And you chip away at it little by little. This is opposite. We're trying to build the humanity of a people that are viewed as inhumane or not even existing. I mean, Rick Santorum, Newt Gingrich has said Palestinians don't even exist. So I'm a fictitious. You're not hearing a real voice. I'm fictitious, apparently. Desmond Tutu, everyone knows from South Africa, an activist there, and Anglican cleric, went to visit the West Bank in 2014. And he wrote, I have witnessed the systematic humiliation of Palestinian men, women, and children by members of the Israeli security forces. Their humiliation is familiar to all black South Africans who are corralled and harassed and insulted and assaulted by security forces of the apartheid government. He adds here, those who turn a blind eye to injustice actually perpetrate injustice. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. And I love that line. It's not just for the Middle East, it's for all conflicts. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. And I hope that inspires all of us to speak out. If it's about the Middle East, if it's about racism, bigotry, homophobia, even if it's not our community, if you choose silence, you are helping the oppressor. And in the case of Trump, which is immediate, if you choose silence, you're helping Donald Trump. If you choose not to vote, you're helping Donald Trump. If you vote third party, you're helping Donald Trump. All of that. And that's the truth. So I hope it changes things. There's an election September 17th in Israel. My hope is that Netanyahu loses, that the more moderate, he's not a liberal by any stretch, Benny Gantz, his party with Yair Lapid, these are names that most Americans don't follow, but if you read the articles, you'll see that's the main coalition against Netanyahu. They almost beat him a few months ago. I hope they beat him. I hope they can build a center-left coalition, and maybe, just maybe, peace talks can start again. Because my goal is really, one, absolutely no violence whatsoever. I have zero tolerance for violence from the Palestinian side, or if the Israeli military kills innocent civilians, same things. I have zero tolerance for that. What I would like, though, in 2020 from American politicians is that when they speak of security of Israel, and they do it all the time, and I'm fine with that. I think the Israelis deserve security. But I want them to go beyond that and talk about security of the Palestinian people. How many politicians have you heard say, we have to secure and make life safe for the Israelis? We have to secure Israeli population. And I agree with that. But how many have said, we have to talk about the security of the Palestinian men, women, and children? Almost none. I mean, Bernie Sanders did in 2016. There are a few, Mark Pocan, a few others, Betty McCullough, a few members of Congress that have, but almost none. And I wish in 2020 we will hear about that. I wish we will, because perhaps that's how you get an approach to peace. When you talk about securing both people, that there's a sense that we are a fair broker involved. And that'll be after Trump. It can't be with Trump. So I'd love to hear from you. Look, you're my guest. We have a whole hour to take phone calls. It's Friday. I'd love to get your views on this. And if you want to talk about something else, I'm fine with that as well. We have a whole hour. We have Naira Haq at 7:30, and then 8 o'clock, it's What Just Happened. 3 great guests, 2 comedians, and our friend Raul Reyes, who you see all the time on MSNBC, will be here to go through the issues of the week, try to have some fun. But right now, you are my guest. 866-997-4748. Give me a call. Be right back with more of the Dean Obeidallah Show right after this.
The Dean Obeidallah Show.
I think Trump clips that they play on the media should come with a health warning saying that if you watch this,